back to Justice, a new podcast where I'll be covering the stories of true crime cases that have received justice and cases that are still seeking justice. I'm your host, Lindsay. Today, I'll be covering the case of Paige Doherty, who was murdered on the 19th of March 2016 on her way to work. Paige Doherty was born on the 17th of April in the year 2000. She lived with her mother Pamela, her stepfather Andy, and her 3 siblings in Clydebank, just outside of Glasgow in Scotland. Paige was known for her infectious smile and outgoing personality. She was always on her phone, speaking to friends, taking pictures, and using social media. She also loved getting dressed up and doing her hair and makeup. This was something that she was considering as her career in the future. But on March the 19th, 2016, her promising life came to a brutal and untimely end. Paige had gone for a sleepover at a nearby friend's house on Friday night, March the 18th. On the morning of the 19th, Paige was up early to go to her part-time job, working in a hairdresser's in Kirkintilloch, around 12 miles away. In order for her to get there on time, she would have taken the 8 a.m. bus. Dylan, Paige's boyfriend, had been messaging her that morning but hadn't received a reply, and around lunchtime he took it upon himself to phone the hairdresser Paige worked in just to double check that she was okay. However, the hairdressers told Dylan that Paige hadn't made it into work that morning. Dylan thought this was strange, and naturally he began to worry. So he decided to phone Paige's mother Pamela to see if she knew what was going on. Pamela then also realised that Paige hadn't messaged her that morning either to let her know that she'd arrived safely at work. It was then that Pamela decided to contact the police to report Paige missing. Friends and family began posting on social media to get the word out about Paige and to ask for anyone who might have seen her or be with her to come forward. This carried on throughout the afternoon, and by the evening, with still no word of Paige's whereabouts, police had put together a search party made up of officers and local volunteers. The search was carried out around the local area of Clydebank throughout the Saturday evening and into the early hours of Sunday morning. Friends and family decided to set up a Facebook page titled Help Find Paige, in order to get her photograph out to as many people as possible. Pamela had also shared details of the items of clothing that Paige could be wearing, as well as a map of the way that Paige usually got to her work. Police had taken the information from Pamela, and as part of their investigation, they had officers take the route that Paige typically used to get to work in the hopes that this would provide them with a lead into her whereabouts. They walked the route from her friend's house to the bus stop and saw that there were a small group of local shops across the street from where Paige would have stood waiting for her bus. The officers went into each of these businesses to ask the people inside if they had possibly seen Paige on the morning that she went missing. They spoke to one of the owners of the grocer shop, Ashi Ahmed, and he told them that he had indeed seen Paige that morning, around 8:15 a.m, walking past his shop as he was making up the rolls for that day. He had waved to her through the window, as Ashi had known Paige since she was little, and she had waved back at him. She had then carried on towards the delicious Deli shop owned by John Latham, just a few doors down. Ashi Ahmed went on to say that he had spoken to John later in the day, and he had said that Paige was cheery as usual when he had seen her in his shop. John Latham had also appeared on the local news after being interviewed about Paige's disappearance. John also had a young daughter called Paige, and in this interview he speaks about how he wouldn't want anything like this to happen to his own child. The other owner of the grocer shop and Ashi's brother, Iki Ahmed, provided the police with CCTV footage from his private camera that covered the front of not only his own shop, but of all the shops in the row. The police took this footage away to be analysed and to see if it contained anything of importance. The next day, Monday the 21st of March 2016, a member of the public had been walking around a wooded area just off of Great Western Road and had spotted what they believed to be human legs sticking out of a bush. They immediately phoned the police, who arrived at the scene and began their forensic work. Paige's family were informed that a body had been found, and they formally identified her to the police. The post-mortem report revealed that Paige had died due to blood loss. Her body had over 146 knife wounds, and she also had 43 blows to her head and to her neck. Police continued their investigation, now returning to Clydebank to speak to John Latham, the owner of Delicious Deli, where Ashi Ahmed said Paige had gone after walking past his shop. John initially told police that he didn't know Paige at all, and he hadn't seen her that morning in his shop. However, this story changed during the conversation with the police, and John told them that he had seen Paige that morning, but didn't remember her, as he saw lots of people come in and out of his shop. He told police that she bought a roll and sausage from him and then left the deli to get her bus. Police asked John to provide CCTV footage from inside his deli, and John obliged. Whilst this was going on, the other CCTV footage from Ashi and Iki Ahmed's shop had been looked over by the police. The footage shows Paige walking along the street and into Delicious Deli at 8:21 a.m. The police had continued watching, expecting Paige to leave the shop shortly after, as John Latham had told them. But this never happened. They looked over the CCTV footage that John Latham had provided them from inside his own shop, but large portions of this footage were missing, to the point that Paige never actually appeared in any of it. This, combined with the fact that Paige was not seen leaving the deli on the crucially important footage provided by the Ahmeds, led police to believe that this was where Paige had been murdered. The footage from the Ahmeds' camera continued to provide the police with vital evidence in their case. As they watched, they saw John Latham run out of his deli at 9:58 a.m. and into one of the shops next to his own. The owner of this other shop testified that he bought some cleaning supplies, including bleach, bin bags, and antibacterial wipes, and then ran back into his own deli. Witnesses from that day claim that the deli was closed and had its shutters down for the rest of the day. At 10:03 a.m, John walks outside again, this time to his parked car at the front of the shop. He opens up the boot of the car in preparation for what he's going to do next. He returns once more to his deli and is then seen on the footage carrying a large and heavy bin bag, placing it into the boot of his car. This part of the footage has not been made public, but some news outlets claim that in this footage you can see a foot with a white sock sticking out of the bag as he puts it into the boot. At 11:59 a.m, John gets into his car and drives away. As I've stated before, the footage provided by the Ahmeds was the key the police needed to help them with this case. Paige's granddad, Willie Monroe, said, quote, "We've known the Ahmeds for 25 years. The family are grateful for what they did because they stood up early and told the truth." Police then cordoned off the Delicious Deli and sent a forensic team to the shop. The shop itself was very clean, but when the fridge was moved, small spots of Paige's blood were found on the floor and in some other locations around the premises. On Thursday, the 24th of March, John Latham was arrested on suspicion of the murder of Paige Doherty. John initially stuck to his story that Paige had entered the deli, bought a roll and sausage, and had then left. However, John was confronted with his purchases of cleaning supplies and, of course, the incriminating CCTV footage from the day of Paige's murder. On the 5th of September 2016, John Latham was finally appearing in court, standing trial for Paige's murder. John pled guilty. His appearance in court was the first time that any sort of motive had been made public. John claims that when Paige entered his deli, they began speaking about her coming to work for him. He says that he asked Paige to fill in some paperwork in the back of the shop, but when he saw on this paperwork that she was only 15, he told her that she was too young to work for him. He then claims that Paige became angry with him and threatened to tell the police that he'd been sexually inappropriate with her if he didn't give her the job. John then told the court that he thought about his brother in this moment, who is a convicted rapist, and about how he felt his brother's life had been ruined by his conviction. John says he didn't want that to become his own fate, and made a split-second decision to grab a nearby knife and stab Paige. However, this motive, despite being the only one that John has ever given, is not believed by the majority of people close to this case. Paige's mum Pamela has spoken about this publicly and makes the very good point that Paige already had a well-paid job at the hairdresser, a career that she wanted when she grew up, and therefore it would make no sense that she would ask John to work in the deli. John Latham was sentenced on the 12th of October 2016 to life in prison with a minimum sentence of 27 years for the murder of 15-year-old Paige Doherty. In December of the same year, John Latham appealed for a reduced sentence due to the fact that he said Paige's remains were easy to locate. The judge, Lord Turnbull, reduced his minimum term sentence to 23 years, stating that John Latham had been a, quote, family man who had done no previous harm. This, of course, was deeply upsetting to Paige's family and friends, who felt like the justice system had failed them. Many members of the public were also outraged at the reduction in John Latham's sentence, due to the nature of his crime being such a violent attack on a child and the consequential lack of motive and truth surrounding the case. To this day, John Latham has never provided another motive apart from the one in which he blames Paige for his own actions. It is unlikely that we will ever truly know what happened that day in the deli. Amidst the darkness, Paige's family and friends have worked tirelessly to keep her memory alive. Paige's mum Pamela started an organisation called Paige's Promise that aims to offer self-defence classes and befriending services for bereaved families. You can find their page on Facebook under the same title if you would like to get involved or share it yourself. As we come to the end of the podcast, I wanted to remember Paige Doherty as a beautiful, kind, sociable young girl who was and is still very loved by her friends and family, who keep her memory alive in all that they do. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If the platform you are listening on allows reviews, I'd be grateful to hear what you think, and I hope to see you in the next episode.